Welcome to the newest episode of Beatin' and Bangin'. I'm your host, Kyle Dalton. Happy Friday, everybody. In today's episode, we're going to discuss several news items, and that includes the latest information on the Cody Ware crash with NASCAR's Hauler Talk podcast, sharing some new details on what happened from the official's perspective, as well as some revealing remarks from Ware himself during an interview on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio. We're going to also discuss a hot topic of conversation this week that Brad Keselowski weighed in on, and that's whether or not there are too many road courses on the schedule. I'll provide you with some historical perspective on the subject. I'll also have the latest on Denny Hamlin's engine exploding on the first lap of practice in Chicago and who is to blame. And we'll wrap up with our fun facts and figures for the weekend's race at Sonoma. However, before we get to that, let's go back to Wednesday. And after I had published my video, I had a chance to listen to NASCAR's Hauler Talk podcast. Naturally, the Cody Ware crash was a main topic, and there were two things from the podcast that I thought were worthy of discussion. The first was an explanation by NASCAR's Mike Ford on what happened regarding cameras catching the incident in real time.
One other topic I did want to bring up before we wrap up this conversation on the 51 is a topic that was prevalent a lot on social media and podcasts, and that is the cameras and the camera locations and angles and what can be seen, what can't be seen. So in turn 6, we have cameras that are Hawkeye cameras is what we call them. And Hawkeye is the company that we partnered with for the Pro Trailer, for instance. They do a lot of the high-tech operations for a lot of sports, NASCAR, golf, tennis, pretty big company. So we have 2 cameras in that location. One is positioned exiting turn 6, and one is positioned upstream from turn 6. And what upstream means is the cars are coming at that camera angle. Primarily, we use that particular camera angle to officiate the choose V. So we can move the cameras, we can zoom in, zoom out. So when they're choosing, we can zoom in and make sure that none of the cars actually hit the box and need to do a penalty. We also can move that camera if there is a car in the tire pack, like the 51. We can turn that camera, zoom into the car, into the driver's side window, make sure the driver is okay, and help direct the emergency services personnel to help in that situation as well. So when the 51 hits, let's talk about that specific moment. The turn 6 camera is positioned in the racing groove on entry, and it's a fixed position. There is someone in race control that can move the cameras, but we do not move the cameras to follow the field or anything like that. It is in a fixed position, and that is the racing groove. That's where the action happens. So what happens with the 51, they lose their brakes or whatever issue they did have, and they hit the wall and then go at a high rate of speed into the tire barrier. That section is a blind spot for that camera. There was no coverage for that accident. So there was, when we say we missed it, or when people say that NASCAR missed it, it wasn't that they weren't watching that particular screen at the time, or they didn't have enough people watching screens, or weren't paying attention to that particular area. And so when Brad Moran says we need to have that footage in the future, what he means is that coverage area needs to be expanded. And so that is something that we need to work on in the future. And if we come back to Chicago, that will be something. And the solution there is more cameras in different positions. Absolutely something that we need to keep our drivers safe, and something that will be put into place in the future at Chicago.
So as Brad Moran said on Monday, if NASCAR returns to Chicago next year, changes will be made. But the second thing, and I think more significantly, was what Ford revealed about the impact of the number 51 car into the tire pack. Take a listen.
That was a big hit. I had just talked to, you probably heard on DBC, Tommy Baldwin mention it. I just confirmed with our Vice President of Safety Engineering, John Padillac. That was the biggest frontal hit that we've seen in the next gen era. Big hit.
Worst ever. Remember, that's more significant than this hit by Ryan Blaney at Daytona in August of 2023, which measured at 70 Gs. And now you have to listen to what Cody Ware said on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio this week about what the impact did to his equipment.
Obviously, we're working with our safety guys and our interior guys, because pretty much everything from the interior of the car as well as my gear was killed in that impact. So thankfully getting a new helmet, a new HANS, there was a crack in the EPS foam inside the helmet. HANS device was cracked, steering wheel got bent up pretty good as well. So I think, it's just a testimony to all the safety people that, are selling us helmets and HANSs, as well as, the steering wheels from Max Pappas, and then my interior guys and all the guys at RWR that are building these race cars and keeping them safe.
Scary, scary stuff. And I want to put a bow on this conversation, addressing a few comments from a couple of folks who said it wasn't a big deal for NASCAR to wait more than half a minute to put out the caution, and Cody, like all drivers, knows the risk and should, quote, just be tougher. You know who you are, and I hope you see this specific episode, and after hearing what I just shared, realize that it was in fact a very big deal, and even more of a reason for fans and media to be frustrated by NASCAR's delayed response. Moving on to our next subject, and with this week being the only time on the 36 race schedule that we have back-to-back races where we're turning right and left, it was as good a time as ever to bring up the subject of the number of road course races on the schedule. Yesterday, Pete Pistone from the Morning Drive on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio talked about it on his X account, saying, quote, "The criticism from some today about too many road courses is ironic to me because fans literally strongly asked for more just a handful of years ago. So many callers to the channel, and as this story reminds, on other platforms." He then shared a story in Motorsport from 2016 when fans were asking for more road courses on the schedule. I'd encourage you to go check out the story because it is interesting to see how times have changed. There's one interesting paragraph that I had to mention, and it was, quote, "Still, the dilemma really isn't about moving Sonoma or the Glen into the playoffs as much as it is about the challenge of finding another road course with adequate infrastructure to support the Sprint Cup Series. But chances are that won't happen for the next 5 years. Last October, NASCAR announced the same 23 venues will be on the Cup schedule through 2020, end quote. Now remember, that was August 2016. So 9 years later, and we have 6 squigglies on the schedule, which just goes to show you how fast things can change in the sport. Well, Brad Keselowski responded to Pistone's post with this, quote, "We went from 2 to 6 road course races, possibly 7 next year. NASCAR was successfully built as a primarily oval racing series. IMSA was built as the primary road course series in North America. IMSA will always do road racing better than NASCAR, and that's okay. Yes, too many road courses in NASCAR." So I'll give you my 2 cents and say it was because of road courses and the first one at COTA that really got me into NASCAR back in 2021, so I'm a little biased for them. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. Moving on to our next story, and yesterday I was running some errands and listening to SiriusXM NASCAR Radio and heard an interview with Denny Hamlin's crew chief, Gayle. He was asked about the engine troubles the number 11 team experienced during the first lap of practice last week at Chicago.
I think it's just a problem beyond JGR and beyond anything on our team right now that we just need to get sorted, and just happens. Unfortunately, is not what you want to have happen, but there was more than likely a problem out of our control that TRD, I'm sure, will get addressed really quickly, and is doing everything they can to sort that out and come to a full conclusion with what happened and how to prevent anything like that from happening to any of the rest of us.
So it's a Toyota problem. When I heard that, I thought of a couple of things, including Denny's engine troubles back in May at Texas that ultimately ended with his car going up in flames. And last year around the same time, remember, Hamlin's engine failed at Sonoma on the 3rd lap. That was one of multiple failures in the JGR camp in a short period of time, with Ty, Christopher Bell, and Martin Truex all having engine issues, which sent Toyota officials scrambling to solve the problem. With that recent history, I think what happened on Saturday in the Windy City is worth keeping an eye on to see if the JGR cars continue having more issues in the coming weeks or months. All right, and it's time to move on to our fun facts and figures for this weekend's race at Sonoma. This weekend marks the 36th running of a NASCAR Cup Series race at Sonoma Raceway from 1989 to 2025, third most all-time for road courses in the Cup Series. Only one of the last 6 Sonoma races were won by a driver getting their first win of the season, and that was done by Daniel Suarez in 2022. The driver leading the most laps won 5 of the last 6 Sonoma races, all but 2024. Chris Buescher finished top 5 in the last 3 Sonoma races, the longest active streak. In the last 3 Sonoma races, Buescher finished 2nd, 4th, and 3rd. Ross Chastain and Chase Elliott finished top 10 in the last 4 Sonoma races, the longest active streak. 5 of the last 12 road course races were won by drivers getting their first road course win. Hendrick Motorsports leads all teams in poles, wins, top 5s, top 10s, laps led, and average finish on road courses in the Gen 7 car era from 2022 to 2025. Hendrick Motorsports drivers won 5 of the last 10 road course races with 3 different drivers winning. William Byron and Kyle Larson twice, and Alex Bowman once. Chase Elliott leads all drivers with 10 top 5 finishes in the Gen 7 car on road courses, but none of his 7 road course wins came in the Gen 7 car. And finally, here's a bit of encouraging news for Rowdy Nation. Both of Kyle Busch's top 5 finishes in 2025 came on road courses. So if there's a chance the number 8 has a strong finish and possibly a shot at victory, it appears to be this weekend in wine country. And one final order of business. I posted a poll on the channel yesterday, but I also wanted to reach out to you guys here. Since the trucks haven't raced in a few weeks and don't return to action until later this month, I've talked with Frankie Muniz about doing a Q&A of race-specific questions from the fans. So if you got a question for Frankie about his racing career, including what he's done in the past or what it's been like for him this season, now's your chance to ask it. Just put it in the comments and let me know it's a Frankie question. I'll interview him next week with your questions and then publish the video. All right, guys, that's a wrap on today's episode. I want to hear your thoughts. First, let's start with the Cody Ware crash, and specifically, what do you think now when you hear that A, that was the biggest frontal impact in the Gen 7 car, and B, what it did to Ware's safety equipment? Second, I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about road courses. Do you like the current amount on the schedule? Is it too many? Should there be more? Let me know what you think. And finally, for you JGR fans, are you concerned with your driver potentially experiencing an engine issue, which has been a surprisingly common occurrence of Toyotas over the course of the last year? Lastly, I want to thank you guys for the kind words about the new YouTube channel store. It's been a lot of work, but I'm really excited about where it is and where this thing is going. Look for some really cool items to be added in the future. Oh yeah, and a special thank you to those who've already purchased items from the store. Hope you enjoy them. And thanks to all of you for checking out the latest episode and supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. And hope you have a great rest of your day and enjoy the race weekend from Sonoma. We'll see you on Monday.